What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another Steelers Saturday Sit Down with Around the 412. I'm Smitty. That's Tyler. Of Around the 412. Tyler, I really hope that this is not the last Steelers Saturday Sit Down that we're doing this year, but it's on the table for it to be. I know we didn't do a Steelers episode this past week. New Year kind of got in the way. I was sitting there on Tuesday. I was like, wait a sec. Are we doing
we
any
think
shows
that one
this week?
through, if we're being honest.
Yeah, because the Penguins played on Tuesday. So we were like,
we have a tendency of waiting until the last minute to figure out our actual recording schedule, which happens to work out most of the time because the Penguins typically dictates when we record, whether that's going to be on Tuesday or Wednesday nights most of the time. But when we do that and then we realize, oh, wait, Wednesday is a New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day, and it's like, I don't know when we're actually going to record. And so, yeah, the last couple of weeks for actual recordings has kind of we've pissed down our leg just like the Steelers did last week in Cleveland. So we unfortunately, doesn't matter. We're going to continue to do this after this week. We don't know if the Steelers are. And since we didn't talk about it this week, I just want to talk about it just for a second. I mean, What an absolute atrocity in Cleveland against Cleveland a week ago. It's 2021 still being the last game that the Steelers have won in Cleveland. We're going to be looking at potentially going for 5 straight in the 2026 season losses in Cleveland. Absolutely disgusting that the Steelers lost the way they did. I understand they don't have DK Metcalf and they didn't have Calvin Austin in that game. They're practically throwing to you and I. And on that last sequence, they basically were throwing to you and I 3 times in a row. But it just was making absolutely, like, it's an embarrassment, I think, that they weren't able to handle business the way that they did, considering the 3-win team Cleveland, considering the rookie quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, who didn't have a great game himself and has a tendency to hold on to the ball. They didn't get to the quarterback as much as I would have wanted them to, like getting the quarterback on the ground. They sacked Dylan Gabriel more than they did Shedeur Sanders, which is surprising to me. And then the injuries that the Browns have been facing as well. I understand that the Steelers were dealing with their own injury bug too, but there's no reason that they should not have lost that game. And the fact that they did, it's just a disappointment that, and this is also ultimately a season-long thing, and you've said it several times and gone over it. In a season where Lamar has had the struggles that he has and the injury bug, where Joe Burrow for the best part of the season is taken out, the Steelers did not take advantage and run away with this division. And now we are sitting here going into the last week of the season with all the marbles on the table, and we're looking at Sunday Night Football deciding the fate of the season. I just think it's a shame that it got to this point, and this should have been decided a few weeks ago, in my opinion.
It's crazy. This isn't making any excuse for this. Cleveland has kind of been a house of horrors, not just for the Steelers, but if you look at the best record that any team in the division that's not the Browns has against the Browns and Cleveland is the Ravens in the last 8 games at 3-5. The Ravens are 3-5 in their last 8 games there. The Bengals are 2-6. The Steelers are 1-6-1. So Cleveland's just a tough place to play, man. This isn't making an excuse for them. They absolutely should have won that game. Like you said, it would have been more palatable if Cleveland just came out there, dominated them defensively the way that they did, but they also just like played really well. Like Cleveland was bad in this game. The Steelers didn't even have to play well to win. They just need to not play as poorly as they did offensively. I mean, Aaron, I understand not having DK. Darnell gets hurt in that game. I think when you take into consideration everything, it's right there for me with the Chargers game for his worst performances. And what a terrible time for that to happen. I didn't think Artie Smith was very good in this one either. But certainly I think Aaron was leading the bus in terms of why they did not win that football game in Cleveland, just mustering 6 points. But what's like the drives to end the game and to end the first half were good. Like, it almost just makes you wonder, would they have just been better going up tempo and just letting him call his own plays beyond just the 2-minute drives? Because it just seemed like that was the only time where there was any type of rhythm. It's the only time that they were able to get Pat involved. Hopefully we see more of that against the Ravens this week. I think you're going to have to, still not having DK Metcalf in the fold. You do get Calvin Austin back, which I don't think against Cleveland would have made that big of a difference, but this can be the transition point here to talk about this Ravens game. I do think against the Ravens, who give up the most explosive plays through the air, a guy like Calvin Austin could make the difference, whether it's like him actually getting the ball or just him being able to take the top off for guys underneath. Against Cleveland, I don't know that he would have made a world of difference for what this. I don't know that you get a different result with just Calvin Austin there. Against the Ravens, 1 or 2 explosive plays, I do think could be the difference. Do want to give Brooklyn a shout out, by the way. She's in here. I don't want to keep it corner. Good morning. Happy Tyler. Glad you are alive. Yeah, we haven't gotten any follow-up in over a week, I guess, since
confirmed the tubercle fracture in my right arm. Have an MRI scheduled for Tuesday, but my doctor friend that I was hanging out with on New Year's Eve, he just did a couple things with my arm, and the fact that I can't lift my right arm, and it's not due to the pain, and the fact that he held up my arm and said, try to hold it in the air like I am with my left arm. And whenever he let go, it just dropped. He's like, yeah, that's a rotator cuff. So unofficial diagnosis, but the MRI on Tuesday will say more. But he thinks I
officially.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
kind of like 40 times in the NFL draft.
Boss is in here as well, said go Steelers. Here's the other thing before we like fully dive into this game. Just talking about like the disappointing part of it. I was hopeful to go to this game and see it basically treated as a preseason. We would see Will Howard, Caleb Johnson, the likes of those guys getting more run. And this one, guys you typically wouldn't see. And it would be like a pseudo bye week. You know, this is the next best. It would have been the next best thing as opposed to having like the 1 seed, right? You still get to bye, even though you're not the 1 seed essentially in the last week of the regular season. Now it's a playoff game before the playoffs, like the total opposite. Mm-hmm. Win or go home. It's crazy. This is the first time that this has happened within the AFC North, specifically with the Steelers and Ravens, where the winner wins the division, goes to the playoffs, hosts a playoff game, the loser not even making the playoffs. It's the first time that this has ever happened. So if you would have told me that this past summer, like, hey, week 18, Acrisure Stadium, Steelers, Ravens, whoever wins that game is going to win the division, I would have taken that 10 times out of 10. It's just disappointing how you got here because, again, you have to kind of, in my opinion, change expectation once you get in season and kind of see the way that things are going. And everything was here. Everything was on the table. Like I tweeted this. I won't use the exact same language that I used in the tweet when I'm on here. But it's basically like they got taken out on somebody else's dime to a Michelin star restaurant. And before they could even enjoy the meals, they crapped their pants and had to leave the restaurant. That's what happened with the Steelers having to play this Week 18 game. So here we are. I'm excited for the game itself, but it's a little bit of a letdown that it turned into this meaningful of a game.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that a few weeks ago, I was hoping that this might be the one opportunity where we get to see Will Howard. Not that I have any expectation of a future for Will Howard as a Steelers quarterback, but literally the only time we were going to see him this year would have been the scenario where they do not have to have anybody play in week 18.
There was the possibility, like, he didn't get to play in the preseason because of injury, and then he misses out on this game, which looked like he could have been played in as well. Like 4 games that it looked like would have been Will Howard reps, just out the window.
Yeah. It's just, it's you say it best. Like, it's just disappointing the way that it got here. A season is fluid. An NFL season is fluid. And that's why I think it's silly, and we both think it's silly, to just go like game by game preseason and give our basis and our expectations and our prediction, because the season is fluid. You don't know what injuries are going to look like in those matchups. You have no idea how these teams are actually going to play in these matchups. I mean, if anybody would have started the season and said that week 3 game against New England is going to be as significant of a win for the Steelers as what it actually turned out to be, given what New England has turned into in the AFC. I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted that. I don't think that we would have done that if we did game by game predictions. And so that's why, like, you just look at where the season is, and you have to understand that it's fluid and it's not just a very structured thing when you're trying to predict it. And that's why it's disappointing. That's why the expectation from probably beginning of December was that, like, we should have this thing wrapped up in a couple weeks and we shouldn't even be worrying about this once we come to January. But we're here, and I want to. I mean, I'm sure we'll like give predictions. I don't know that either of us are going to predict this, so I just want to kind of like ask it right away.
Okay.
How would you feel in the stadium if the Steelers and the Ravens end up tying, but that means the Steelers go to the playoff?
Somebody asked about it. Somebody actually predicted this to happen.
Like having blue balls. Like, are you going to be disappointed and frustrated, sitting in your seat, but also knowing that a good thing is coming?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be upset about how much time that I'm spending there on a Sunday night, knowing that I got to wake up the next day, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I know that the result is them going to the playoffs if they do tie. I can't see it happening because the Ravens can't have that happen. Like if they get to like a 4th down in their own territory with like a couple minutes left in overtime, they have to go for it. Like they because they have to, like they cannot have a tie happen. So it's hard to say until we get there. I think that I would react as if they won, though. Like personally, I'm curious to see what the rest of the fan base would do. But like,
I mean, it's
essentially
the
same end result.
As a win. Yeah.
It's not the same for that game, but it's the same end result, which is really all you care about.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to me because in my head, and maybe it's just the notion of a tie in sports is the frustrating part, and I irrationally almost feel like a tie is almost worse in my head than a loss, which I know statistically that's not the case. Like when it comes to your actual record, that is not the case, and it shouldn't be treated that way. But it's almost like, what did I just spend the last 3 hours doing if it's not even going to have an end result?
Waste of time.
Yeah. So so it's very irrational to say that a tie feels worse than a loss. But this is like the single case where a tie is going to feel just as good as a win for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember a couple years ago when we needed the Raiders and Chargers to not tie, and it looked like they were going to. And like the Raiders could have been playing for it because then they both make the playoffs. But the Raiders, thank you, Raiders, because that's what the Steelers need to have happen. Kick like a super long field goal, to win, knock out the Chargers and put the Steelers in to the playoffs. But like these two teams cannot play that way. There's only one playoff spot to be had in this game, and the Steelers get it if they end up.
Well,
tied,
Steelers can play that way.
Yeah,
like if it comes down to a situation where they are like they're in overtime,
and or wait, no, Alan said this.
I would say it comes down to a situation where they're in overtime. They could be milking clock and then just kind of like punt the game away, and then if there's like only like 30 seconds left, and then live with the tie.
You know how people are when Tomlin punts, but like Alan was like they could have like a 4th and 2 or something like in Ravens territory in overtime with like a minute left, and they would punt it because they can play for the tie or what. I mean, people would probably be very upset, but I did want to bring up this one because this kind of goes into like the vibes thing. Hope you're still excited to go. Wish I could enjoy the crap out of it either way. It's going to be amazing. Or Lamar is going to go crazy and have an I'm back game. I have no idea. Lamar practicing in full for the first time in 2 months this week, so he'll definitely be back out there. Not even on the injury report with the back thing. He's going to wear some like super protective flak jacket. Curious to see what that looks like, and curious to see if they actually have him like running around a bit more, or what the plan of attack is going to be. Kind of needs to be all hands on deck. We'll get into the injury situation for both sides here in a second. But specifically like with that, I feel like, I obviously have made my prediction. I made it well in advance because I know what this team needs to have happen in order, what my prediction needs to be in order to get this team where we want them to go. But like, truthfully, this is one of the games where like I have no idea which way I would be leaning if I was making my prediction actually based off how I feel. Full transparency, that didn't happen this week. You guys know if you watched Afternoon Drive, I think I said it last week, like if this team needs to win this game, I'm picking the Ravens to win. That's what I feel like I have to do for the benefit of the Steelers. But truthfully, I have no idea. Like, I don't think either one of these teams are like very good, but at the same time, I don't know who is very good in the conference. So, the Homelander GIF would be the most common reaction within the fan base. I'll post it immediately if there's a tie. Sarge is here, and he's got a wrench by him. Might have to take that away. No, I'm just kidding.
I also agree with Brooklyn that tying in sports is kind of like getting a participation trophy. It kind of feels that way.
I feel like if this game ties, 100% the Ravens are going to be trying to get that to change, right? Similarly to like how Buffalo got the overtime rules changed.
Yeah.
Baltimore is going to want no games to end in ties. They're like, let's just keep playing. And they're going to Sarge, we already talked about beefy shoulder.
So I guess before we dive into the actual game, that brings up a curious conversation. The NHL, they got rid of ties, like because ties were a thing in the NHL for a long time. And I personally wish the NHL would go back to a tie structure, just kind of change their overtime rules, like instead of a 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, make it a 10-minute overtime of 3-on-3. And if they do not go or score in that 10 minutes, it ends in a tie, and have a 3-2-1 structure as far as points goes. But they got rid of ties. They have the shootout. And so this is what I want to know. Like, what would be the NFL equivalent to a shootout? Like, would it just be like 2-point conversion attempts at some point, like it is in college football? Or like, yes. What is the best case scenario?
I think that was exactly where my mind went to. It was 2-point conversion attempts. A lot of people might say like the field goal kicking or whatever. I don't think you can let it come down to that.
See, if they did that, I would want the field goal kicking, except you back it up 5 yards every single time. And you keep going until you see who has a better kicker.
That's too gimmicky to me. Like 2-point conversions are at least within the realm of like actual football.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. No, I agree.
So I'm for the 2-point conversions over and over again. Yeah, Sarge, don't let it happen again. You should be sorry for asking after we had already addressed. We don't want to listen. Appreciate you asking. Tyler can text you. We don't want to take up more time here on the sit down, rehashing the story and rehashing the results. So, because we got to talk about this game. This is another divisional game where every time that these come up, it's like, how different could it be from the first time around? In this case, no Derek Harmon for the Steelers the first time around, no DK Metcalf or Darnell Washington the second time around. Although the first time Darnell left with an injury, that was the game that he got concussed. So I guess he didn't have him for a majority of that game, but no DK Metcalf in the fold still with the suspension. On the Ravens side of things, pretty clean bill of health. Marlon Humphrey and Rashad Bateman dealing with illnesses. Again, like that's kind of hard to speculate what type of illness that is. Like unless it's a Cole Holcomb type of illness, I would think that they're going to be out there. And then pretty much everybody else good to go. Lamar off the injury report for the Steelers, obviously. TJ Watt back. Brandon Echols back, James Pierre back, Calvin Austin back, Isaac Seumalo back. Literally the 53-man roster, good to go. And I assume that's going to be that way in the Ravens side when these guys are clear of their illnesses or play through it, whatever might be the case. But I assume that they're going to. So, yeah, what is really different about this matchup? Have the Ravens leaned into the identity of Derrick Henry? Do you think that game against the Packers was like a one-game blip, or is that kind of the offense that you expect them to try to put on display on Sunday night?
I'm sure they're going to lean into it still. I don't know why you wouldn't if you are the Ravens. You look at what they did when they played in Baltimore a month ago. They put up over 200 on the ground, ended up losing the game. But ultimately, like that is the strength of the Baltimore Ravens. And I don't know why they have treated Derrick Henry like he is a practice squad call-up at times, where sometimes he will get 10 carries in the first quarter of the game, and then he doesn't touch the ball until the fourth quarter. And it makes no sense in my mind why they treat him the way that they do. But like looking at what he did in Green Bay a week ago, that should be the blueprint for how the Ravens are going to operate, especially looking at a Steelers defense where, albeit they have played better against the run in the last month or so, but I still think that you look at the matchup that they had in Baltimore and say, if I'm the Ravens, I'm saying, I think we can run the ball on these guys. Now, the biggest like caveat to that is like no Derek Harmon. And I think it's very irrational to think that Derek Harmon himself is worth like 100 yards difference of rush defense. But it just so happens to be coincidental that when he's playing, that is the case for the Steelers. And so that'll be interesting to see how the Steelers rush defense attacks the Steelers or the Ravens rushing attack. How they are able to bottle up Derek Harmon. I think that they are, or not Derek Harmon, Derrick Henry, excuse me. I think that with Derek Harmon and Cam Hayward, they would be able to do a better job than what Green Bay was able to do a week ago. But I still think that is probably going to be the key for Baltimore, rushing the football. You have Lamar coming back, but how healthy is he actually going to be? Like if this was a game that was inconsequential, would he actually be playing in it? And whether that either side, whether either Baltimore had their playoff spot already locked up, or if the season was already over for Baltimore and they couldn't mathematically get back into the playoffs, would Lamar actually play in this game? And so that's what I'm wondering too. Like how mobile is he going to be? So like I think the blueprint is there for Baltimore in this one. Lean into Derrick Henry, lean into that rushing attack. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Steelers respond. And like I said, the thing that is like the biggest difference is that they do have Derek Harmon in this game. And I think that transforms what your defensive line looks like when it comes to stopping the run. And like I said, I'm not irrational in thinking that Derek Harmon is going to be an 80 to 100-yard difference in the rushing attack by himself, but it does seem different when he's in there, and they're going to get a healthy TJ Watt back as well. So I expect the Steelers rushing attack to look better than they did in the first time around. This game is in Pittsburgh, but I think that the Ravens have a game plan and have a blueprint from what they did a week ago. I don't think they're going to have nearly the success that they had a week ago, though. 4 touchdowns for Derrick Henry, over 200 yards. Like I don't think that they're going to get there with him.
150 rushing yards. It was like 146. It's total 150. 150 rushing yards out of I formation alone against the Packers. Like Patrick Hard played a ton in that game, and the Ravens were able to just kind of spam out of one formation because the Packers' interior defensive line was just getting thrown around. They were getting thrown out the club by the Ravens' offensive line, which has not been a very good offensive line. Like I think that game was more about the Packers than it was about the Ravens. And I don't say that as a Steelers fan to try to diminish what the Ravens did. I just think that we have enough body of work throughout the course of the season to say that performance was a worse performance by the Packers than it was a great performance by the Ravens.
Sure. And I don't have any numbers to back this up, but just going off of my head, I think that the Steelers do pretty well going against I formation. So like if that's the game plan for Baltimore, I still feel pretty good about it.
They're second or third fewest rushing yards allowed per carry. Okay. So it's not
so that backs it up.
Yeah. DB threw it out there yesterday. We were talking about it on the afternoon drive as well, just because like they've been really leaning into having Ricard on the field more and just trying to like bully people, which has obviously been successful for them getting back in the race here. I like the Steelers defense in this bite. I know what you're saying about Harmon, and I agree, but I will say too, I think it's because it's not just getting Harmon back in there. It's allowing Keanu Benton to play a different role, who definitely can get bullied around there at times, depending on what gap he's in the run game. And it's allowing like Cam Hayward to maybe take some other reps off. Like it strengthens.
Well, that's why I'm not irrational in thinking it's only Derek Harmon, but it's like when he's in there, it just makes the defensive line.
It's the trickle down effect of having Derek Harmon.
Sure.
Y.A. Black getting to play a lesser role, but still like having that specific spot or role that he's good in. Yeah. I mean, even if the Steelers lose this football game, I don't think it's because they got run all over by Derrick Henry. I'll say that. Brooklyn's comment here about momentum and emotional desire to win. The one thing that comes to mind for me when I read that is honestly just like the ability to bounce back. The Steelers have had to do this several times this season, but like clearly from week to week, this was their biggest letdown. Losing this game against the Browns to not clinch the division, then have to bounce back against the Ravens. Is there any concern from you in terms of their ability to do that? Because I think that like we often overlook morale, the vibes that are going on within the locker room. Last year, I could have told you how the playoff game was going to go before they played it, just by being around the team a little bit. Like when I left that regular season finale against the Bengals, I felt like I walked out of a funeral. Nobody wanted to be there. It was a dead team walking into the playoffs. They knew what the result was going to be. I haven't been around this team yet to know where they're at mentally, but do you question at all their ability to bounce back from that type of loss they just had?
I don't. I really don't. And if I'm being honest with you, a lot of that has to do with Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback. Like I think that he has enough mental resolve and the mentality to get the most out of his guys, at least on the offensive side of the football. And I trust that the defense has the leaders that they do with TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey. I trust that they would be able to bring the most out of themselves, but specifically the offensive side of the football, seeing how bad they performed in Cleveland and specifically Aaron Rodgers. Like I'm sure he's pissed off at his performance a week ago. And I think that he's the type of player and the type of quarterback that wants to avenge his bad performances. And so I think that this is a perfect opportunity to do that. And I'm sure that he's going to treat it that way, whether he outwardly says so or not. I just think that the mentality of the quarterback position this year we have different than what we've had the past few years in Aaron Rodgers. And so I think that's going to have a trickle down effect to everybody on the offense as well. Like if your quarterback is having that mentality and going into this game, treating it as a revenge game for what you did a week ago. I think that the offense is going to rally behind that. And I do think that your mentality in these games matters. And then if that's the case last year, where you're saying that the Bengals season finale going into the playoffs, like it just seemed like they just wanted to be done with the season, like then no wonder playoffs look like the way that they did. And so if this is going to be the case this year, then why even play the game if they're not going to have the right mentality in this one? If this is a pseudo playoff game as the season finale, why even play the game if they're not going to have that mentality? So maybe that's like a little bit of hopium from my fan perspective, but I do think that they've got the right guys in the locker room to have that mentality set going into this game.
Yeah, and I do think, like you're talking about with Aaron, he talked about how he doesn't really stack bad performances. I appreciate the confidence in which he spoke with that about. Regardless of him not physically being the same player, I think that's the part where like I can appreciate outside looking in. Is just I don't think that he's the type of guy that like lets the ship sink from a morale perspective. They have a lot of veteran leaders on this team. A lot of those guys were obviously here last year, and Cam and TJ and the likes of those guys. But I think when you look at like Aaron and Jalen coming in, those are the guys in the locker room that are going to be able to get this group up for this type of game. And I had to ask Alan about it. That's actually where we left off yesterday's afternoon drive. I was like, I wish I would have brought this up earlier in the week, but I'm also kind of glad that we waited. Where do you get the sense of where this team is at mentally? And he said, like, he was asking questions kind of throughout the week to try to figure out. By Thursday, he didn't feel the need to continue doing so because he could tell like they were all dialed in and they were juiced up for this game, which is great. I haven't necessarily felt that like from the fan base perspective. I'll be honest. I think both fan bases, like this doesn't feel like the Steelers Ravens.
Well,
I think it's going to the stadium. But,
well, I was going to say, I think part of that is probably because there's a portion of each fan base that would want their team to lose, not necessarily because they want the season to be over, but because of what potential implications of that loss may bring. And I think that that's a little foolish. I don't necessarily think that because I understand that there have been reports like if the Steelers season ends on Sunday, that potentially they might move, like the Steelers, Mike Tomlin might move on, or they might make a coaching change. I think it's all BS until it's actually done. Like I refuse to believe those kinds of reports for the Steelers. And I think that's very click heavy and very popular talking point. I don't think it actually makes a bit of difference going into this game. And so that's why I think it's foolish. If you want the Steelers to lose just because you think that is going to guarantee that Mike Tomlin is going to be gone, I just don't know where you get that thought process. I have no idea what is going to happen if the Steelers lose this game, but I don't think the first thing that's going to happen is Mike Tomlin is going to be gone.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm in full agreement. If I never want to tell people how to fan, I just think, like you're saying, it's a little foolish to think that a change is going to happen even if they lose this game. If you could guarantee that was going to be the case and there were fans that were rooting for that, then so be it. I don't know that I would be on board with that. But again, I'm not going to tell somebody how to be a fan. I just think you're rooting
how
for
wide open the AFC is. You look at the AFC, they've already beaten the number one seed in the AFC, or the potential number one seed in the AFC this year. Like they could play, and you win, you have a home game. You could beat anybody in the AFC this year. They could also lose to anybody in the AFC this year, which they've kind of shown that they could.
Yeah, I mean, their likely opponent is Houston. And with that defense, I would expect the game to be like 12-9. Full transparency, we're not there yet. Let's say that we're doing another one of these next week, and it is Steelers-Texans. I think that I would lean towards picking the Texans, but again, like I think it's wide up. They didn't draw the Bills, who I thought were the worst matchup for them. I don't think that there's teams, any of them, that are so far away from the rest of the pack. I think it's just about what team do you match up better and which teams do you match up worse with. I think Buffalo is the worst possible matchup for the Steelers. I think the Texans at least give them a chance because it's a home game and it's going to be like a rock fight where it's going to be super low scoring. I know the Texans offense has played better as of late. So is the Steelers defense. I'm a believer in what the Steelers defensive changes have brought them. I think I picked the Texans to win, but I don't think it's just cut and dry. That's it for whoever wins this division and gets in as a one and done.
I want to go back to one of Brooklyn's comments, and I kind of just want to let you have the floor with that because of your situation.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think I always try to be careful with what I say specifically on here. And to be honest, like Pat and I try not to talk as much football with him as I do just like about life and being positive. Just because he's surrounded by football. And I think that one of the reasons that he appreciates our friendship so much is because he doesn't have to talk about it with me. With that being said, I don't think the issue is Aaron. I think that there's more there with Artie Smith when they brought in Jonnu. I understand that it's not like he's touching the ball a bunch, but just you're having two guys basically play one position in those two. I don't think that there's been any issue in terms of prior to Darnell's injury with the role that he's had, but this team could have largely been living out of 12 personnel and just had Darnell and Pat being the guys within that. But because of the inclusion of Jonnu, that hasn't been the case. Aaron and Pat, as far as I know, have a great relationship. He actually sent me a screenshot of the text that Aaron sent him yesterday saying, "Great week of practice, bro. Hope you're ready to roll, fired up to do this. Can't wait to be under the lights." They get together every Thursday, as does basically the entire offense at one of their houses. They go to dinner a lot. I think the relationship is certainly there. For whatever reason, it just hasn't translated to Pat replicating the season that he had last year with quarterbacks that the entire organization decided to move on from. So I don't know. I don't know if there's much more that I can say to that. I don't think it's an Aaron and Pat issue, I guess, is basically probably the best way to boil it down.
That's fair. I don't have anything to add. I wanted to let you have the floor with that, just for I feel like obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. I live in Ohio. Trust me when I say this, Browns fans would love to have Mike Tomlin versus what they have every year. It's unfortunate we haven't won the playoffs. We are building a great young core. Again, this is where perspective matters. This isn't absolving them if they lose on Sunday or anything like that. You got to be fluid with your opinions, and I think that it would be a massive letdown to not make the playoffs, to not win this division based off Lamar's injury, the way that he's played this year. He hasn't been healthy, with Joe Burrow it basically being a lost season. Just the Ravens, to me, was the team that I picked to win this division at the beginning of the year. Thought they would win 12-plus games. That hasn't been the case. The door was open for the Steelers to win this division. That being said, beginning of the season, you tell me this team's only going to win 9 games. However, you're going to feel really good about where the offensive line is by the end of this thing. You're probably going to feel really good about a couple pieces on the defensive line. Joey Porter Jr. is going to continue to have not given up a touchdown in nearly 2 seasons. You tell me these things, and I'm like, okay, I can live with that because it's more about 2026 and beyond for me than what I thought going into this season. So mainly the offensive line, I think, is where I look at. So, yeah, I 100% understand where you're coming from, Matt. I think it's important to not be complacent, meaning it's totally fine to be frustrated with the fact this team has not won a playoff game since 2016, but also appreciates that they are playing meaningful football literally every single week. I remember there's been 2 games in my lifetime that have been meaningless for the Steelers, where there was nothing at stake going into week 18 or the last week of the season. Obviously, it used to be week 17. So I can appreciate that while remaining not complacent and still wanting more, I think. There's obviously a balance there, a fine line there. Not everybody does it well, but here we are. In terms of Tomlin, I'll say this, because he's not going to get fired. This isn't me making the prediction that it's going to happen. I think it is more on the table now than it's ever been that he steps away.
Is there reasoning behind that?
Yes.
That you want to share, or
no?
Okay. That's fair. That's fine. I just didn't know if there was.
Another time, another place, we can discuss more. I know people are probably gonna be pissed about me leaving like that, but it's not something that I can talk about a lot.
That's okay. I'm pissed about this comment.
I think there's things. Arturo, I hope I said that correctly. I've already made my prediction. I don't disagree.
That doesn't mean you have to be happy about it.
Oh, I'm not happy about it, but I don't disagree. Matt said, I've wanted the same thing with Pat. Glad to hear they're in a good place. Hope we can see some more receptions this week like we did the end of the game last week, especially without Darnell. sometimes things that happen in practice throughout the course of the week don't always translate to on the field. Here's what I'll say is I think 88 is a massive part of this week's game plan. And I don't think that was always the case throughout the course of the season. Why it took until week 18 and some other stuff happening to get to this point, I don't have the answer for you. I think at least going into this week, he's a massive part of this offense.
Well, it took it to week 18. Well, it's because the Ravens don't wear black and orange. They wore black. If every team wore black and orange, then it wouldn't be a problem.
That's true.
But
well, we haven't. I guess we haven't really talked a lot about Steelers offense versus Ravens defense much here. I mentioned at the top about the Ravens when we were talking about the injuries, Calvin Austin getting back in the fold. The Ravens defense allowed the most explosive plays through the air. Aaron and the Steelers offense haven't created in totality a bunch of explosives, but they did have 4 explosive plays through the air against the Ravens the first time around. Now, 3 of those were from DK Metcalf, who's not going to be in the fold. One of them was from Calvin Austin. I think you got to test this secondary. Marlon Humphrey's given up explosive plays like every single week. Nate Wiggins has not been the same since that foot injury that he suffered on Thanksgiving. Chidobe Awuzie is the guy that gave up that explosive to Calvin Austin that I'm talking about. You obviously have to be very aware of where on the field Kyle Hamilton is. But beyond him, beyond Roquan at the second level, who I'm going to be honest, still a good player, but I think has kind of gotten overrated at this point, especially like the last 2 seasons. I think they can be had, especially through the air on deep. Now, does Aaron have the keys to unlock that this time around? Does he have the weapons to unlock that this time around? I'm not 100% sure. There's only one way to find out. I'm just saying you at least got to start out the game testing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one benefit of if you're not going to have DK Metcalf is that Calvin Austin is back. He's the one guy that I think is the clear X factor in the explosive plays. Like if someone on that receiver room is going to open that up, I feel like it would be him. Maybe that's targeting him on Marlon Humphrey going deep, and he beats him to the outside. But I think that Calvin Austin would be the way to go if you're just looking at a guy from that receiver room who could replace those explosive plays that you saw in that first matchup. And I think that another area that I really hope that the Steelers improve from that first matchup is on the ground. We talked about going into that first matchup in Baltimore, how the Steelers should have success running the football, how the Ravens defense was one of the worst teams of the NFL at the time at stopping the run, and that if they were going to find success offensively, it should be on the ground. And then they had 1 yard per carry or something like or 2 yards per carry. It was not a great day on the ground. Kenneth Gainwell touched the ball 4 times, Jalen Warren 8 times. Totality in the game, their total touches, which are including receptions, Jalen Warren had 11 and Kenneth Gainwell had 10. I would expect that number to double for both of those guys, or close to I feel like between the two of them, you're probably going to be looking at 35 to 40 touches in this game, or at least I think that's the game plan you should have if you are the Steelers. They had 17 total rushes in this last matchup between everybody, including Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying that at least one of these guys should have that in just rushes by themselves if I was making the game plan for the Steelers. Because I just, despite the lack of success that they'd had in Baltimore, they've had success on the ground in recent weeks, especially with both of those guys. Also, shout out Kenneth Gainwell, team MVP. I think that's awesome.
Imagine telling somebody that this past summer.
Imagine telling us that 2 months ago when we were saying, why is he getting touches?
That's true. Whoa. Okay, hold on. I never said, why is he getting touches? I said, why is he playing above Jalen Warren or equal to?
I mean, that's fair. We were saying, why is he taking away Jalen Warren touches?
Yeah, at least to that degree. I mean, if you wanted what's weird is he hasn't necessarily been great spelling Jalen. They haven't necessarily been a great 1-2 punch in that way. It's just if Jalen gets hurt or doesn't play in a game, those have been his best games, have been when he's just kind of handed the ball to run with. I will say for this game specifically, I have both on the field a ton. We've seen Gainwell be able to go out and run routes as a receiver. When you don't have DK Metcalf and you don't have a plethora of wide receiving options, why not use Kenny Gainwell in that way? And also have Jalen Warren on the field out of the backfield.
Yeah, I think in a game where it is literally do or die, win or go home, having your best players on the field most of the time is probably going to bring you the best success.
Bold strategy, but I like it. Speaking of bold, I think it's time to get into predictions. I think that we've set the table well here. I'm terrified.
Well, based off of what you alluded to, you didn't give your score, but at least not on here. But we know you're picking the Ravens to win. I'm curious what your bold predictions are going to be now.
My bold predictions are still I always am pro Steelers with the bold predictions. They're going to have good things happen, regardless of what the result is going to end up being.
I've thought about that, and not to cut you off, but I've thought about that is just because we give bold predictions, they don't have to always be positive for the Steelers. But I feel like we just have the tendency to always make them positive for the Steelers. But we very well could give bold predictions that go against the Steelers. We just never do.
Sure. Yeah, DB does sometimes. So my offensive bold prediction involves a defensive player. I'm going to say that a defensive player plays at least one offensive snap for the Steelers, and it's not a kneel down because Jalen Ramsey's the guy.
So it's not Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah. Jalen Ramsey.
Well, it could be Jalen Ramsey, but it's not going to be him on a kneel down.
Right. That's his role in that. So not outside of that, a defensive player is going to play an offensive snap.
I think that's fair. All the marbles on the table. You just got to bring out every stop. Offensively, I think that you are going to have an explosive play for a touchdown to Calvin Austin. I just touched on it a few minutes ago. I think that he is the one guy that you could look at in that receiver room that you could point at to where they could exploit the defense with his speed and be able to take the top off of the defense. I don't think that you're going to get that from MVS or Adam Thielen. You might be able to get an explosive play from the tight ends room. Pat might have some big involvement. And a lot of the time I feel like Pat finds explosive plays just because he finds the soft spots and zones pretty easily. Is able to make plays and get yards after the catch. But I'm going with Calvin Austin. He's going to score a touchdown, and it's going to be an explosive play. It's going to be a 20-plus yard pass.
Okay. All right. I like it. Curious to see which defender it's on because they've all been prone to giving them up. So, all right, what do you got defensively?
Defensively, it's tough because I feel like it's got to be either run related or I was having trouble coming up with a defensive one because it's do I just say they limit Derrick Henry to so many yards or something? But I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to be more specific. I think that they have a forced fumble on Derrick Henry, and I'm going to say that it's going to be Keanu Benton. Forced fumble on Derrick Henry.
Okay. Derrick Henry fumbled in the game at Acrisure last year on the first or second play on offense. Nick Herbig punched it out. So we'll see. Hey, I think to tell is Derrick Henry wearing sleeves for this game because he fumbles when he does. So we'll know.
I didn't know that was a correlation.
DB brought it up to me. I didn't fact check. I'll take DB's word for it. I think he does enough research to just trust him on it. But the
dude doesn't sleep and just lives on his laptop, so probably the case.
Defensively, James Pierre back in the fold, got Lamar the first time. Ultimate bragging rights at every family function because Cuzzo is getting him again. James Pierre with another interception on Lamar Jackson to the point where, to be honest, if he does this, I don't know if I can predict it to happen again the next time that they play. It's no longer a bold prediction. If he gets him in both matchups this year, can't do it again. So James Pierre gets his cousin Lamar Jackson yet again for an interception.
It's going to make that Easter dinner pretty awkward this year.
It might not be invited, to be honest.
Might not be invited.
Not knocking him out of the playoffs, too.
That's true. There's a lot of implications on what that interception could be.
And before we get to the final story, I do want to just take a look at some of these. Matt, have you heard anything about Gainwell getting re-signed? It's obvious how important he is this year. Curious if the feeling is mutual or if he'd want to get more money elsewhere. I think I'm curious to see how they weigh what Kenny has done for them this year versus we already paid Jaylen Warren versus we spent a third-round pick on Caleb Johnson. Are they willing to pivot? Yeah, are they willing to pivot from that already to have Kenny Gainwell, to pay Kenny Gainwell and continue to have him be a massive part of this offense. I mean, again, kind of going with like what we said about opinions needing to be fluid throughout the season. I think so do those type of evaluations. And they learned how important Kenny Gainwell was. Will Kenny Gainwell be this important with another quarterback, though? I think that's a fair question to bring up, because I think especially within this room, like with this group of players, when you look at the lack of pass catchers that they had, and when you look at like the physically diminishing tools of Aaron, it was necessary to have that outlet out of the backfield. Will that continue to be the case if they add to the wide receiver room in the draft and if it's somebody else playing quarterback? I'm not trying to diminish what Kenny Gainwell did this year. I'm just wondering, is it the same role going forward with different pieces?
That's a good point. I mean, that begs the question too, like, what is the quarterback room going to look like in 2026? Like, do they try to run it back with Aaron, get one more year out of him? How do they address that? So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's an easy black and white answer.
So many guys are extension eligible, like that 2023 class, which is...
I don't think that's why I don't think it's just an easy yes or no answer, but I do think it is. It would be interesting to see the team MVP not return for the following year. Just curious scenario.
And then you think about the relationship prior. Like I think a big part of him coming in was because of Andy Weidl's relationship going back to Philly. I think that they would love to keep him in tow. There's a lot of things that play other than just what Kenny meant to this year's team, I guess is all I want to say. All right, love it, Logan. Don't know how we're doing it. Don't know how that's happening, but I appreciate the sentiment. Bold prediction: Joey gets a pick 6. Oh, that wasn't.
I think you could have stopped. I think you could have left the number off, and you could have just said pick, and that would have been bold. I mean, dude,
but that wasn't even Joel. We know that Joel's saying it as well, but we got 2 Joey pick 6 because of that. Connor throws a touchdown out of the Spartan as well. So the Spartan is kind of what I'm looking at in terms of the defensive player.
Who would he throw it to?
Spencer Anderson.
I was gonna say I was about to ask, like, who's out there in that formation?
Kenny, Pat, although Pat might be pushing now. Yeah, I don't know. Imagine what if you've seen like the wrinkles now be built off of it out of this Spartan formation, which has been pretty cool to see. What if it was just like a shuffle pass? So like it's still behind the line of scrimmage, but technically a throw.
And here's another thing. Connor throws a TD out of the Spartan. What if it's a backwards pass? So it's because that's considered a run, isn't it?
Yeah, it can't be. We're not giving Joel that.
We're not giving him that. Yeah, okay. Because didn't Saquon have a touchdown like that this year, where they faked it, but it was technically a backwards pass?
Brooklyn said bold prediction goes down to the wire, freaking out the whole time. Is that really bold? Brooklyn, I think that's probably
Steelers Ravens. I feel like that's probably a given.
Hey. All right, so let's get to our final scores and stuff. You already know who I'm picking. Unfortunately, I feel like this has to be done for the betterment of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I do have the Ravens winning this game. I've had the Ravens winning this game for a week now, basically. No, 6 days. I do think that, at least in terms of the way that it looks at the end result is going to look very throwback AFC North Steelers Ravens when you look at it. I don't think that there's going to be an abundance of points scored. I'm going to say the Ravens win this one 20-16 on Sunday night.
I mean, you kind of alluded to it the entire show, so it's not surprising. And when I brought it up a little bit ago, I mean, you basically confirmed it. So 20-16 Ravens, that would be very disappointing, especially for you. I mean, you'll be in attendance. I'm sure you'll be sulking back to Monaca. But I really think that the Steelers are going to find a way to win this game. And I'm not picking opposite of you just to be opposite, even though I think that the tendency is whenever we both pick the Steelers, sometimes that they lose. But whenever we're different, or we have both, and this has been rare this year, where we've both picked against the Steelers, I feel like more often than not, the Steelers find a way to win. And so I am picking the Steelers, but not for that reason. I do think that they should and probably are embarrassed by what they did in Cleveland a week ago. I think they want to avenge that. And I think that there's no way they want to go out this season losing to these guys. I think that they understand the job at hand. It's at home, and it's win or go home. Steelers are going to win, and I think it's going to be fairly vanilla score. I'm going to say 24-21. Steelers are going to win the football game, and we're going to be talking about a playoff game at Acrisure a week from now.
I certainly hope that you're right. Is there any part of you that just has like, in picking them, almost like a refusal to believe that it's going to be over? Because, like, you know, when we would have done this last week, it would have been, hey, beat a 3-win team when they're in which it almost seemed like a lock. Like, nothing's a lock, certainly in the division, where, again, this has kind of become a house of horrors for them in Cleveland. But I just wonder if within your prediction, within your thinking, it's almost just like a refusal to believe that it could be over.
I think that definitely probably plays a part into it, even if I didn't think about that making the prediction. And I think that part of it too is like seeing what was on the table for the Steelers this season that we talked about, how they should have ran away with this division a long time ago. It should have been locked up like 2 or 3 weeks ago for them, and they just did not put it away. And I think that probably plays into it. Like, I just refuse to think that the Steelers are going to go out this way based off of everything that's happened this year, but mainly based off of the guys that they have in the locker room, the guy that they have at that quarterback position. Like, in my head, this would be like the Packers playing the Bears the last week of the season, win or go home. What's Aaron Rodgers' mentality going to look like? Like, that's how I feel going into this game. Now, obviously, they got to go out and do it, but and that's why I'm happy that you said like they are locked in, like as of Thursday, like they're locked in this matchup, because they should be locked in. Like, this is win or go home against your rival, one of the best rivalries in all of sports. And obviously, if you're the NFL, this is what dreams are made of. Shout out to Lizzie McGuire. But this is what dreams are made of as far as a marketing standpoint, as far as viewership standpoint. Sunday Night Football, win or go home for the AFC North title. But I'm sure that plays into a part of it. Like, I don't want it to be over, and it shouldn't be over, because it should have been locked up a few weeks ago. And maybe that's why you'll be right. Maybe that's why you'll end up being right, is because the Steelers just were never able to put it away, and they're not ultimately going to do so. But I don't want the season to be over, man, especially with the way the AFC North is. And I know I said it before, we've said it multiple times, like, it doesn't matter who they played. Like, even if they played Buffalo, and they know they already lost to Buffalo this week, while that is the worst matchup, I do not think that there's a team they can't beat in the AFC this year. If there was a season where the Steelers were going to trip, stumble, and find their way into a conference title or potentially even a Super Bowl, I feel like it would be this season, just because of what the AFC looks like. You don't have if you get in, that means you're not going to have Lamar, you're not going to have Joe Burrow, you're not going to have Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Like, you don't have a ton of these alien quarterbacks. There's literally only one alien definition type quarterback that we have in the postseason, where you should have everything in front of you, even though that may not be the case, and it might be done. We in 36 hours, we might be talking about how the Steelers season is over, but I just refuse to believe it's going to be the case.
I mentioned going into the game against Cleveland that this, like, the one thing that Cleveland had going for them was just how poorly the Steelers have played there. And it was a test to see if this team was any different. They failed that test in Cleveland. Now it's a test to see if this team is different in terms of their resolve to bounce back from that with everything on the line. They didn't do it last year because when things started to crumble, it just kept happening and kept happening. And they weren't able to stop it. Is this team able to? Is this team different? In terms of, and this is where I want to wrap up, was texting Pat yesterday, and he was just texting me about how fired up he was, and he's like, I need your energy to match mine right now. So I acted like I was giving a speech, sent him a voice message first, and then I typed something out in all caps, and I said in it, and because you're also a Western PA native, I think that you'll appreciate this. I'm sure at some point growing up, when you were younger, when you were delusional and thought you were going to end up being a pro athlete, Steelers Ravens playing in this specific game was probably something you had on your mind, playing football in the backyard. Like, yeah, I can get to that level. I'm going to play for the Steelers one day. This is the matchup that you grow up dreaming about. Sunday Night Football in prime time, under the lights against the Ravens. That's the matchup you grow up dreaming about. These guys have the opportunity, not just for themselves, but for those little kids that grow up dreaming right now about playing in this matchup, to put on for them, to put on for the whole city, clinch this playoff spot, clinch this division, host a playoff game for the first time in Pat's career, which is crazy. So they're not just doing it for themselves. They're doing it for an entire stadium, an entire city that has been waiting years for this to happen. Get the monkey off their back. Let's host a playoff game, and let's win that playoff game. It's been long enough. God, I just want to go to a playoff game.
Did you include that last part to him?
No, that wasn't part of it.
I figured. But I could see the visual frustration coming out when you were talking about winning the playoff game.
Yeah.
It's true though. It's been long enough. And it's crazy that, like you said, that how they didn't have not hosted a playoff game in Pat's career. And then, like, I put 2 and 2 together. Like, when you said it, I was like, wait, that's right. The last playoff game they hosted was the season before when they lost to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. He's played in 3 playoff games. They've all been on the road. I'm ready. They're ready. Hope everybody's ready. We're going to find out early, by the way. I think that you might be able to fake a little bit when talking to get to people if you're mentally ready for this. As soon as that ball is kicked off, you're going to know. You can't fake it. There's no faking until you make it.
Especially on the defense, I think.
Yeah.
Defense, I think, is easier to tell than the offense because the offense kind of has to be a little stoic just because of the nature of the
they might be
position.
Like very conservative out and start out slow anyway. Yeah, the defense has to be up to the task immediately. We're going to find out.
We'll see.
One of us will be right.
You got me hyped up too.
Good. I hope that the comments feel the same way. That the end was not part of the text that I sent.
I figured it's
but anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you have not already on your way out. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412. We got to do pretty soon. We'll be doing the prizes and stuff too. It's just been so hectic, obviously, with the holidays. So we'll definitely do that for the Rock Around the 412 stuff. But whether you guys are watching or listening, because we do upload these on the audio platforms as well, Spotify, Apple, wherever your podcast from, we're there. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. But wherever you're watching or listening, you'll find all of our great sponsors for the show as well. So take advantage of the stuff that we got down there too. But yeah, that's it for this one. And hopefully there's another one. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm signing off for the season on this because I don't want that to be the case. Even though I predicted that it's ultimately going to be, I'm not predicting that's going to be the case in terms of signing off. So hopefully we see you guys next Saturday for another Steelers Saturday Sit Down. And regardless, we'll be back for the weekly shows next week. Maybe even a Pirates one if we can lock down this Jake Mangum interview finally. It was kind of the holidays going on for us. And it's funny that it was actually kind of like me having to put him off as opposed to like he was trying to work around like the holidays and said he could. But either way, we'll be back next week. Full slated content for you guys on the channel. So looking forward to that. You can find Tyler Weiler_Teach33. To find me everywhere, Zachary Smith PGH. And again, find us everywhere at Around the 412. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Steelers Saturday Sit Down. And here we go.